Welcome to the future of design. This is the show designed to help you, as a title professional, really make sense of technology with a practical, critical eye.
Yeah, absolutely.
In this audio overview, we're tackling something that's, well, rapidly reshaping customer interactions everywhere, including our own industry. AI chatbots. This is episode 2. AI chatbots, the future of customer connection in title.
That's right. And look, we've all had those customer service experiences, right? Some good, some maybe not so good.
Definitely.
And AI chatbots, they really represent a fundamental shift away from those older, much more rigid systems. So our goal in this deep dive is to, explore what these modern chatbots are, really dig into how they actually work behind the scenes, understand why getting the setup and the integration with your current systems right is just, well, absolutely crucial for success.
Okay.
We want to walk you through how to think about picking the right solution for your specific operation, navigate that important and frankly evolving regulatory landscape you need to be aware of.
Yeah.
And maybe most importantly, talk about how you integrate these things thoughtfully within your team, without losing that staff trust or creating unnecessary anxiety.
Yeah, that trust piece is huge. And these chatbots, they're not some, sci-fi concept anymore. They are definitely here now. And they're already impacting how businesses connect with clients and partners.
They really are.
So understanding them, both the good stuff and the limitations, that's really key if you want to navigate the changing demands of the market and, what your customers expect in title and escrow today.
Exactly.
So let's just jump in and unpack this vital piece of the modern landscape.
Okay, sounds good. Let's start maybe with a little bit of history, because to really get a feel for what today's AI chatbots can do, it helps to take a quick look back at the long and sometimes pretty awkward journey of machines trying to talk like humans.
It really does put things in perspective, doesn't it? If you rewind, like way back to the 1960s, MIT developed one of the very first programs meant to simulate conversation. ELIZA, it was called.
Right, Eliza.
Now, this wasn't AI like we think of it today, not even close. It was super simple based on pattern matching. Basically, it found keywords you typed and just kind of mirrored them back as a question, sort of like a simple therapist might.
And what's really fascinating about Eliza, what scientists noticed, was this thing they called the Eliza effect. Even though people knew it was just a simple program, they started acting like it understood them. They'd attribute human understanding, intelligence to it. They'd share personal things, get emotional. It really showed how much we want to connect and see understanding, even when it's, not really there.
It proves that even the illusion of understanding can be surprisingly powerful. Okay, now fast forward to the 80s and 90s. This is when most of us got really familiar with automated systems, especially those interactive voice response systems, the IVRs. Press 1 for sales.
It's the classic phone tree purgatory. We've all been there.
Oh, yeah.
And look, they were efficient for one thing, routing calls based on a super rigid rule-based menu. If your problem fit neatly into box number 3, great. But if it didn't, oh man, you were often stuck mashing 0, desperate for a human, or just hanging up completely frustrated. There was zero flexibility, zero real understanding of what you actually needed or how you were trying to ask for it.
Exactly. It was all on you to navigate their very specific rules. No room for error.
Things really started to shift, though, in the 2010s. That's when we saw machine learning, ML, and natural language processing, NLP, really take off.
Okay.
And these technologies allowed for hybrid systems. They might still have had some rules underneath, but they also started to learn from data. That made them a bit more dynamic than the old IVRs.
So the early web chatbots from that time, they could handle queries that sounded a little more human. Right. They could maybe understand slightly different ways of asking the same thing.
A little bit, yeah. But let's be honest, they still struggled, often significantly, with actual conversational flow or understanding nuance or dealing with anything that wasn't explicitly in their script or knowledge base.
Right. Ask it slightly wrong and it just falls apart.
Exactly. They got tripped up really easily. Which brings us to, the revolution that's happening right now in the 2020s. This is the era of large language models, LLMs, and generative AI. This is the tech powering the chatbots you interact with now that can have much more free-flowing, genuinely natural conversations. And the crucial part is they can generate totally new human-like responses.
Yeah.
They're not just picking from a list of pre-written answers.
And there's a key development here that makes these powerful generative models really practical, especially for businesses, something called retrieval augmented generation, or R
Yes, RG, that's a big one.
So this lets those general LLMs pull specific current information directly from outside sources, like crucially for us, your internal systems, your title production software, your CRM, your document storage.
And this is absolutely transformative in a business context like title. It means the bot isn't just guessing based on the huge, but maybe outdated or generic pile of internet data it was trained on initially.
Right.
With RAG, it can grab real-time file-specific information. So it can tell you the actual closing date for file number 12345 or pull up the specific deed associated with that transaction. Its answers become super relevant and accurate to the specific situation at hand.
So thinking back through that history, why does this matter for you, listening as a title professional? Well, the big takeaway is that today's AI chatbots, the ones powered by LLMs and using ARG, they are fundamentally different creatures from those old, frustrating phone trees or the simple chatbots of even a few years ago.
Absolutely. With the right training, using your data, and given the right access to your systems, they can hold natural conversations. They can understand the intent behind even complex questions, and they can retrieve specific, live information in a way that just wasn't possible before.
And this just unlocks completely new possibilities for how you interact with customers, with agents, with lenders, and even for internal efficiency.
It really does. They could potentially handle a huge chunk of those routine questions, freeing up your experienced team for the complex stuff. But, and this is so critical, getting that proper training and that access to data part right, that's the absolute foundation. That's what takes you beyond a simple FAQ bot to something that delivers real measurable operational value.
Okay, so let's peek under the hood then. How does this modern tech actually work? We can try to demystify it a bit without getting bogged down in, super technical terms.
Right. The core idea, like we touched on, is moving way beyond just simple rules and matching keywords. While those early bots were basically just simple triggers, see keyword X, give response Y mize, modern AI chatbots use this sophisticated mix of technologies. The heavy hitters are natural language processing, NLP, and machine learning, ML.
Okay, let's break this down. NLP, natural language processing. That's the tech that lets the chatbot read or hear and then understand and interpret human language like we actually use it, typed or spoken.
Yeah, it's the first step. It lets the bot take that raw text input and figure out context, the user's underlying goal, even the emotion or sentiment behind the words sometimes.
Okay.
Think of NLP as giving the computer the basic ability to process language, to structure it so it can work with it. And within NLP, you've got important sub-processes, like normalizing the text that means cleaning it up, maybe making everything lowercase, getting rid of punctuation that doesn't affect meaning, fixing common typos. It standardizes the input.
That's nuts.
And then tokenizing. That's breaking down sentences into smaller chunks. The computer can handle usually individual words or maybe meaningful short phrases. It turns a stream of text into a list the computer can analyze.
Got it. Then there's NLU, natural language understanding. You said that's a subset of NLP.
Exactly. If NLP is about processing the language structure, NLU is about getting the meaning. It's about comprehension, grasping what the user actually intends to do, not just recognizing the words. This is where the bot identifies the user's goal. Someone types, "When do we close?" or "What time is my signing appointment?" NLU figures out the intent they want information about the closing schedule. That's called intent classification.
Right. And NLU also pulls out the specific details needed to answer that, right? Like names, dates, addresses.
Precisely. That's entity recognition. So in the query, status update for 123 Main Street, client Jane Doe, NLU identifies the intent, get status, and extracts the key entities 123 Main Street, Jane Doe. These entities are absolutely vital for pulling the correct information from your system and giving a personalized, relevant answer.
Okay, that makes sense. And then machine learning, ML, and deep learning, that's the learning part.
That's the learning part. These techniques let the chatbot get better over time by analyzing data from past conversations. Instead of needing programmers to write a specific rule for every single possible question someone might ask.
Which is impossible.
Totally impossible. ML algorithms help the bot see patterns, figure out language better, and improve how accurate and helpful its responses are. Theoretically, the more good data it sees, the smarter it should get at handling your specific kinds of conversations.
Okay. And the source mentioned this is how they become more accurate over time.
Exactly. And building on that, generative AI, especially using those LLMs we mentioned, that's the really advanced capability. It allows these bots to create completely new human-sounding text. Unlike older bots that just picked response A or response B from a script, Generative AI can synthesize information from various sources and craft a unique, context-aware answer on the spot. This massively boosts their ability to handle a much wider range of questions, especially complex or nuanced ones, in a way that feels much more natural.
And the sources hinted that advanced AI agents are like the next step up from these generative bots, suggesting even more capability for complex tasks.
That seems to be the direction, yeah. More reasoning, maybe handling multi-step processes. Another really critical piece is dialogue management. Think of this as the bot's short-term memory for the conversation.
Okay.
It keeps track of the context. What did we just talk about? What information has been exchanged? It manages the flow of the conversation back and forth, making sure it stays coherent. It's what lets you ask follow-up questions or clarify something without the bot completely losing track.
And it's worth mentioning how this connects to RPA, robotic process automation.
Yeah, good point. RPA is usually about automating those repetitive, rule-based digital tasks, like copying data between systems. You can think of a chatbot as a kind of RPA, specifically for communication. But when you combine AI's understanding with RPA's action capability, sometimes called intelligent automation, you can have a chatbot that not only understands a request, but can actually trigger and complete more complex digital tasks based on that conversation.
Okay, so that's the tech. Impressive stuff. But you made a key point earlier that what really makes a chatbot work well, especially in a title operation.
Yeah, forget the fancy tech for a second. The absolute truth is, it needs good information. Relevant, accurate, up-to-date information. A super smart AI is totally useless if it doesn't have the right data to work with.
Right. So what kind of data are we talking about?
Several key types. First, your internal data. This is all your company's specific knowledge. Your internal FAQs, your policies, your procedures, glossaries, standard email templates. This is the stuff that makes the bot sound like your company and know your rules.
Okay.
Second, and this is absolutely crucial, API integrations. Those secure, seamless connections to your core operational systems. Your title production software, your CRM, accounting, scheduling. This is the pipeline for real-time, file-specific data. Current status, closing dates, required docs, maybe even specific dollar amounts is set up right. Without this, the bot is just a fancy FAQ machine.
Makes sense. What else?
User histories. Having access to past interactions with a specific user helps the bot personalize the conversation, remember preferences, or maybe pick up where a previous conversation left off. And finally, high-quality training data. This means diverse examples from your support logs, records of common customer questions and problems, examples of how your best team members respond to things. This data needs to be specific to your business and the title industry. It's essential to train the bot to understand and respond accurately to the kinds of unique queries your clients and partners actually ask. The sources really hammer home the need for this domain-specific knowledge.
I really like the analogy the sources use for this. Think of a modern AI chatbot, like a really high-tech GPS navigation system in your car.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's got amazing processing power, the AI, ML, NLP, the LLM, that's its engine. But how useful it actually is, how reliable, how accurate, that depends entirely on the quality and the freshness of the maps and the real-time traffic data it's getting.
Exactly right. That map and traffic data, that's your internal knowledge base, your live API connections to your systems, and your specific training data. A brilliant GPS with an old, inaccurate map is worse than useless. It'll send you the wrong way. Same with a chatbot. It can be brilliant if it's trained correctly and plugged into accurate live information, but it can be a total disaster if the data it's relying on is wrong, incomplete, or just not accessible.
Okay, speaking of plugging it in, when you start looking at bringing a chatbot into your title or escrow operation, you quickly find there are different ways they connect with your existing tech stack. And it's really important to get the difference because it dictates what the bot can actually do. Let's talk about integrated versus embedded solutions.
Right. So integrated chatbots are often the simpler ones, maybe quicker to get started with. They usually sit alongside your main systems, kind of like an add-on application. They're not built right into the core software itself.
So they're good for handling the basics, right? Stuff that doesn't need deep access to sensitive data, like answering those common questions about the closing process in general, giving out office hours or locations, maybe guiding someone through the first few steps on your website.
Exactly. Their connection to your core internal systems is typically pretty limited. Maybe they use a basic API to check a very simple status flag, but they're usually not diving deep into the transaction details.
So you can think of an integrated bot as more of a standalone helper for general questions. And because they don't need to mess with your core systems too much, they're usually less complex and faster to implement.
Right. Now compare that to embedded chatbots.
Yeah.
These are much more deeply woven into your operation. Often, they are built directly into the interface of your core software, maybe right within your title production system or your CRM or your Escrow platform.
Okay, so they're part of the main system staff or clients are already using.
Yeah, exactly. And because they live inside that core system, they can securely access and interact with much more detailed, real-time, and often sensitive data.
Ah,
And this is where you really unlock the potential for that chatbot to perform tasks that deliver, as the source puts it, real operational value.
mm.
Because it's embedded, it can do things like pull the specific detailed status for transaction X, schedule a closing appointment directly into the main system calendar, update a client's contact info in the CRM based on the conversation, or maybe even generate a personalized closing cost estimate using actual transaction data, if it's properly integrated and authorized, of course.
Gotcha. So these embedded ones, they definitely sound like they require more effort up front, more setup, more integration work.
Oh, significantly more, yes. You're connecting it right into the heart of your operational data, but the potential payoff, the potential ROI, is much, much higher because it can automate tasks directly tied to your core workflow, tasks that need access to that sensitive live file data. The source material was pretty clear that these embedded solutions are often necessary for real operational value in this kind of industry.
Hmm. And this also ties into that whole build versus buy question, doesn't it? Do you try to develop your own custom chatbot or buy a platform from a vendor?
It does. Building it yourself, custom development gives you the absolute maximum control. You tailor every single feature, every integration, every data process exactly how you want it.
But big costs up front, right? Longer timelines.
Definitely.
And you own all the maintenance forever.
Exactly. High upfront cost, takes longer, and you're on the hook for all ongoing maintenance, security updates, keeping up with new tech, new regulations. It's a big commitment.
Okay. So the alternative is buying a third-party platform.
Right. Typically, that means faster deployment because the core tech is already built. Upfront costs are often lower, usually replaced by ongoing subscription fees, and the vendor handles the core platform maintenance, security, and updates.
The trade-off being maybe less control, less customization.
Potentially, yeah. You have less control over the underlying technology itself and maybe less flexibility for really deep, unique customization, although many modern platforms are pretty configurable. And the source pointed out that for niche industries like ours, title, you often see companies favoring solutions built specifically for title, or platforms that are known to be highly customizable and integrate well with the standard software we all use. A generic, off-the-shelf bot might not cut it.
So putting it all together then for a title company, what's the likely path? Maybe start with a simpler integrated bot for basic FAQs just to get your feet wet?
That could be a reasonable starting point, yeah.
Huh.
For quick wins, handling those really common repetitive questions that don't touch sensitive data, it lets you learn the ropes.
But to really get those big efficiency gains, the cost savings, the better service by automating file-specific stuff.
Then you almost certainly need to look towards an embedded chatbot, one that integrates deeply and securely with your core title production system, your Escrow software. That deep integration is what lets it move beyond being just a website helper to become a genuine virtual assistant that can perform real actions within your systems for your team, your clients, your partners.
Yeah, the source backed that up, saying systems that plug directly into common title production software are especially effective because they can do concrete things like look up specific documents or pull tax info, not just talk about the process. That deep connection is really the key differentiator for operational value.
Okay, so the potential benefits are definitely there, but we absolutely have to talk about the risks. Implementing AI chatbots isn't all smooth sailing. It's crucial to understand where things can go wrong. And we've seen some pretty public examples, some notable failures that really hammer this point home.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the biggest risks people talk about with this generative AI is something called AI hallucination. Can you unpack that a bit?
Right. Hallucinations when the AI basically makes stuff up. It generates information that's wrong, nonsensical, or just completely fabricated, but, and this is the scary part, it presents it with complete confidence. It sounds totally plausible.
So it's not like a bug, it just confidently lies.
It's not quite lying in the human sense, but it's a consequence of how these models work. They predict the next most likely word based on patterns in their training data. Sometimes, especially if the question is ambiguous or it doesn't have the right specific data, it extrapolates incorrectly or just invents details that fit the pattern but aren't true.
And that confidence deception, as you called it, that's what makes it so dangerous, right? Because a user might just believe it.
Exactly. A client, an agent, even one of your own team members using an internal tool might totally trust the bogus information because it sounds right. And that can lead to serious problems.
We saw that cautionary tale with the airline, right? The one about the bereavement fare.
Yeah, that was a big one. A major airline support chatbot incorrectly told a customer they could apply for a bereavement discount after buying a full-price ticket.
Mm-hmm.
So the customer, trusting the bot completely, bought the ticket expecting a refund later. But the airline's actual policy didn't allow that, and they denied the refund.
And the airline tried to say, hey, not our fault, the bot's separate.
They did initially, yeah.
Yeah.
They tried to argue the chatbot was its own thing, and they weren't liable for its mistakes. But a legal tribunal shot that down completely.
Okay.
They ruled the airline was responsible for information given by any of its agents, including an AI chatbot. The airline had to pay damages because their bot gave negligent advice.
Wow. Okay. The lesson there for title companies is crystal clear, isn't it? You are legally responsible for what your chatbot says.
Absolutely.
If your bot gives out wrong info on closing costs, misses a deadline, misinterprets requirements for documents, or gives bad advice based on misunderstanding legal terms, that could lead directly to huge financial liability for your company, regulatory problems, deal delays, maybe even lawsuits. Accuracy isn't just nice to have in our world, it's fundamental. A hallucinating bot is a massive liability.
And another cautionary tale really highlights the danger of bad training data. There was this city government chatbot meant to help small businesses understand regulation.
Right, I remember hearing about this.
It was found giving advice that wasn't just wrong, it was actually encouraging illegal stuff, like telling businesses how they could potentially steal tips from their workers or engage in discriminatory tipping. Just awful stuff.
And that wasn't programmed maliciously, right? It learned bad habits.
Exactly. It wasn't evil. It was just trained on flawed or insufficient data. It likely scraped bad info from unreliable places online and learned those inaccuracies, then started spitting them out as official guidance.
Yikes. Okay, another critical lesson for title. The data you feed your chatbot is everything. If that training data is incomplete, wrong about regulations, policies, procedures, or if it contains biases, the bot can easily give advice that leads people, clients, agents, even your own staff, into making errors, violating rules, or engaging in unfair practices.
It really underscores the need for super rigorous vetting of your training data sources, careful data governance, and continuous monitoring of what the bot is actually saying. You can't just train it once and forget it.
And then there's the risk of AI just making bad judgments in complex situations. The example of that big real estate company's AI home price predictor wasn't a chatbot, but it's a relevant warning, right?
Definitely relevant. It shows the risks of relying too heavily on opaque AI models for really high-stakes decisions, especially in markets that change quickly, like real estate. Their algorithm massively overestimated home values.
Leading them to overpay for thousands of homes.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
The problem was reportedly something called concept drift. The AI failed to adapt when the market conditions changed. It was trained heavily on data from a hot, rising market, but couldn't adjust when things cooled off.
And the result was hundreds of millions in losses.
Over $500 million, reportedly. And they had to shut down that whole iBuying business unit. It was a catastrophic failure of relying on AI without enough oversight or understanding its limitations in a dynamic environment.
It really highlights the need for transparency or at least explainability in these AI models, especially for critical stuff. You can't just trust a black box for complex things like valuations, risk assessment, maybe even complex underwriting decisions without strong human oversight and ways to know when the AI might be going off the rails.
And we've seen other risks pop up too, maybe less directly tied to a simple customer chatbot. But they show the broader potential for AI errors. You had AI used in legal research, literally making up fake case citations.
Right, getting lawyers sanctioned.
Exactly. Generative AI creating false defamatory stories about real people, huge privacy and libel issues there.
We've also heard about AI in recruitment showing bias, right? Gender, age bias based on historical data.
Yep, leading to lawsuits. Facial recognition AI with racial and gender biases leading to wrongful arrests. AI in healthcare underestimating the needs of minority groups because the training data or proxies were flawed. Even ad delivery algorithms showing bias in who sees job ads. It's a recurring theme.
So stepping back, why do all these risks, these specific examples, matter so intensely for us in the title industry?
Because our entire industry is built on handling incredibly sensitive personal and financial data, NPPI. Accuracy, compliance, trust. They're not just goals, they're the absolute foundation. Non-negotiable.
So, any mistake or bias from an AI chatbot or even an internal AI tool used for verification, the consequences could be devastating.
Think about it. Wrong closing figures, missed deadlines because the bot misunderstood something, advice that accidentally violates fair lending or fair housing laws like EQA or FHA due to bias,
Exposing non-public personal information in a chat log.
generating false information that blows up a transaction. Any of these could mean massive legal liabilities, huge financial losses, regulatory fines, and severe, maybe irreparable damage to your company's reputation.
And the legal and regulatory side is scrambling to catch up, isn't it?
It really is. That airline case proves companies are being held responsible. Existing rules like GLBA on data security, CCPA, GDPR on privacy, LTA best practices, KYCL, they all apply to the data your chatbot might touch.
Plus, new state AI laws are popping up, like Colorado's.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Colorado passed the first big state AI law in May 2024. It covers risk assessments, transparency for certain AI uses, and you're seeing industry groups like the Mortgage Bankers Association worrying about a patchwork quilt of different state laws, making compliance a nightmare for national operations.
Which includes a lot of title services supporting the mortgage market.
Right, so the bottom line is you have to be incredibly diligent. Transparency with users is vital. Tell them they're talking to a bot. Clear disclaimers help. But they might not save you if the bot gives negligent or biased advice that causes real harm. You absolutely have to stay informed and vigilant about compliance.
Okay, so given all those significant risks, data security, compliance, accuracy, liability, picking the right AI chatbot vendor becomes an absolutely critical decision, doesn't it? It's not just about who has the neatest features.
Not at all. It's about finding a genuine partner who gets our industry's specific needs, our complexities, and especially our strict regulatory environment.
Absolutely. And that whole vetting process, it really needs to start internally, right? Before you even pick up the phone to call a vendor.
100%. You need to know what you need first. What are your goals? What are your current capabilities and limitations?
So first internal question. What specific repetitive tasks are eating up your staff's time right now that a bot could realistically handle? And think tactically.
Yeah, be specific. What questions could a brand new hire answer if they just had access to the right info? Basic file status checks, common document requirements for, say, a refi versus a purchase, office directions, simple term definitions, or maybe routine stuff like sending standard your closing as scheduled reminders.
The goal is finding tasks where automation frees up your expensive, experienced people for the tricky stuff that needs their brain power and judgment.
Exactly. Second internal question. Who's the main audience? Is it external clients needing closing info? Realtors checking status? Lenders? Or is it mainly for your own internal team to get info faster or automate internal steps? Because the audience dictates features, tone, data access, the whole interface.
Right. Third, what systems must it connect to actually be useful? Name them. Your title production system, escrow accounting, CRM, document management, scheduling. If it can't talk securely to these via APIs, it can't get that real-time file-specific data it needs to do more than just answer generic FAQs.
And maybe the toughest but most crucial internal question. How good is your data right now in those systems?
Uh-oh.
Because the chatbot is only as good as the data it gets.
Yeah.
If your file statuses are inconsistently updated, if addresses have typos, if documents are filed haphazardly because staff don't follow the same procedures, that chatbot will give wrong or conflicting answers. It'll frustrate people and cause more problems. You need good data governance and consistent work habits first before expecting AI to work reliably off that data.
Okay, that's sobering but essential. So once you've done that internal homework, then you're ready to talk to vendors, and you need to grill them, right? What are the key questions?
Okay, key areas. First, industry expertise. Do they actually get title and escrow? The workflow, the jargon, the regulations. Can they prove it with real references or case studies from companies like yours, not just some generic retail business?
Okay, next.
AI capabilities and accuracy. What tech are they actually using under the hood? NLP, ML, LLMs. How does their bot learn and get better? Critically.
Yeah.
Can you securely fine-tune it using your specific company policies, your data, your language?
Right, make it sound like us.
Exactly. And super important, what happens when the bot gets stuck? Doesn't know the answer, gets an ambiguous question, flags a sensitive issue. How smooth and reliable is that handoff to a human? Is it seamless? And what specific safeguards do they have built in to fight hallucinations and ensure accuracy, especially for critical stuff like dates, numbers, legal requirements?
Which leads right into the absolute must-have category for title: data security, privacy, and compliance. This needs intense scrutiny.
Totally non-negotiable. Ask them. How specifically will our sensitive NPPI and client data be protected? Get details on encryption in transit and at rest. Access controls, who at their company can see our data, and how is that tracked? Where is the data physically and digitally stored?
And this one needs a big fat no for an answer, right?
Yeah.
Will our company data or our client data ever be used to train their general AI models or models for their other customers?
Absolutely must be NO. Your data has to stay yours, period. Also ask, what are their data retention policies? How long are chat logs kept, especially since they'll contain sensitive info? How are they securely deleted?
And how does their solution actively help us comply with the rules we live by? GLBA, CCPA, GDPR, LT best practices, KYCML maybe, those new state AI laws. What's their plan if they have a data breach involving our data? And how do they protect against AI-specific attacks, like prompt injection, where someone tries to trick the bot into spilling secrets?
Good list. Also, dig into integration and customization. How easily does it plug into your specific title production software, your escrow system, etc.? Do they have ready-made connectors, or is it a big custom job? How much can you customize the bot's personality, its responses, workflows, look, and feel to match your brand? And crucially, do they offer a truly embedded option, one that lives inside your core software, not just a pop-up?
Okay. What about transparency, governance, and bias? Can they explain, at least somewhat, how their AI makes decisions or comes up with answers? We want to avoid total black boxes for important stuff.
Right. Ask about their company's overall AI ethics policy, their governance framework. What are they doing proactively to find and reduce algorithmic bias, ensuring it treats everyone fairly, regardless of background?
And then the practical stuff, implementation and support. What's the rollout process actually look like? What resources do we need to provide time, people, technical help? What training and ongoing support do they give our team? How does it scale if we get busier? What are their guarantees, their SLAs for keeping it running and helping us when we need it?
And don't forget cost and ROI. Get the pricing model crystal clear, flat fee, per interaction, per user. Avoid surprises later. Can they help you realistically estimate the potential return on investment based on the specific tasks you identified wanting to automate?
And the essential pro tip you mentioned, always push for a trial run, right? A sandbox or pilot.
Absolutely essential. Before signing a big contract, insist on a pilot program. Use your actual data, securely of course, maybe connect it to a test version of your system. Test it hard with your real policies, your typical client questions. See how it really performs in your environment before you commit fully. It's the only way to know for sure.
Okay, so you've done the internal homework, you've grilled the vendors, maybe run a pilot, and you've picked a solution. Now comes the part that's often the trickiest, actually getting it working day to day in your operation. And it's way more than just installing software, isn't it?
Oh, way more. It's about redesigning how work gets done, integrating the tech deeply, and maybe the toughest part, getting your existing team comfortable, even on board with the change.
Yeah, that team piece feels huge. Let's start with the workflow design, though. You know what tasks the bot could do, but how do you weave that into the daily operations smoothly?
You've got to be strategic. Target those high-volume, repetitive tasks we talked about. Identify the things your team does over and over and over that don't need deep analysis or human touch.
Like confirming appointment times, sending standard document checklists, explaining what escrow means for the 5th time today, giving a simple, yep, still waiting on the survey, status update.
Exactly. Automating those frees up enormous amounts of human capacity. But to do that automation effectively, you absolutely must ensure seamless integration with your core systems.
Not just nice to have, but essential.
Foundational. For the bot to give a client the real current status of their file, it needs that live, reliable API connection to your production system. If it can't pull that data accurately in real time, it's just giving generic fluff. So the workflows have to be built assuming those connections work reliably.
And you have to plan for when the bot can't handle something, right? Build in that human safety net.
Absolutely critical. Build in robust human escalation. You need clear pathways for when the chatbot hits a wall, complex query, sensitive topic, something needing empathy, an exception to the rule, or just something it's not trained on or feels unsure about. It needs to seamlessly hand off to a human. There should be clear triggers, maybe the user types help or agent. Maybe the bot recognizes it's out of its depth, and the transition needs to be smooth for the customer. They shouldn't have to start all over again explaining the problem. The source stressed having that human in the loop for anything tricky or high risk.
And it's not a set it and forget it thing, is it? You have to keep tweaking it.
Definitely not.
Mm.
You need to iterate and refine. The bot only gets better if you pay attention. Monitor the conversations. Where is it failing? Misunderstanding certain questions. Giving wrong answers sometimes. Use that feedback loop, the data from failures or flagged interactions, to refine its training, adjust the workflows, improve its responses. It's a continuous improvement cycle.
Okay, now let's tackle that delicate people side. Getting staff comfortable, building trust, that feels like the biggest potential roadblock. Fear of being replaced is real.
It is real, and you have to address it head-on with open, honest, consistent communication. That is absolutely non-negotiable.
So job 1 is communicate the why.
Clearly and repeatedly, frame the chatbot not as a replacement, but as a tool to handle the boring, repetitive, low-value stuff that, frankly, nobody enjoys doing.
Right, freeing them up for the interesting work.
Exactly. Explain that automation lets your skilled team focus on the complex, high-value work that needs human brains, empathy, judgment, relationship skills, solving tough title problems, navigating complex escrow issues, building rapport with clients, handling unique situations. Position it as enhancing their roles, making their jobs better and more focused on their expertise, not eliminating them.
And you said involve them early, don't just drop it on them.
Crucial. Involve staff early. Don't just dictate. Get their input from the start. Ask them, what repetitive tasks drive them crazy? What would they love to offload to a bot? Get them involved in testing, giving feedback on the bot's responses. Their frontline insights are gold for making it actually useful. And involvement builds ownership, not resistance.
The source had a great point about adoption being like getting used to a new colleague takes time and positive experiences. So maybe don't go all in at once.
Yeah, exactly. Plan a gradual journey. Maybe start small. The bot drafts routine responses, but a human has to click send.
Okay, like training wheels.
Right. Let staff see it, trust it, fix it if needed. As confidence builds, then you automate sending for certain low-risk things. Start small and build confidence. Pilot programs on limited tasks or for a specific team first. Let people get comfortable gradually, see the benefits, work out the kinks without high pressure.
And training is obviously key, not just how to use it, but
Provide comprehensive training. Yes, train them on how to interact with it if needed, but more importantly, train them on its capabilities and its limitations. They need to understand what it can do, roughly how it works, but also where it might mess up hallucinations, errors. Give them clear guidelines on when to step in, verify info, or just take over. Confidence comes from understanding the tool, warts and all.
And finally, that data quality thing comes back again. Maybe even incentivize good data habits.
You might have to. Incentivize good data hygiene. We keep saying the bot needs good data from your systems. Well, your staff are the ones putting data into those systems. Emphasize again how critical their consistent, accurate, timely data entry is. Explain directly. Your good work feeding the system makes this bot effective, which helps everyone, including reducing your repetitive tasks. Maybe recognize teams or individuals who maintain high data quality. Connect their actions to the success of the tool.
And the overall message to staff is that human in the loop isn't just about fixing bot mistakes, it's about elevating their role.
Exactly. Empowering them. Their job shifts. They're not just doing the repetitive task anymore. They're managing the AI that does it. They oversee it, correct it, leverage it, ensure it's accurate and compliant. They become the experts focusing their human intelligence on the exceptions, the complex problems, and the vital relationship aspects of the job.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, we've covered a lot of ground on AI chatbots in Title and Escrow. What's the big picture, the main takeaway?
Well, the big picture is that these modern AI chatbots, the ones using LLMs and RAG, they genuinely offer real, tangible potential benefits for our industry. Increasing efficiency by automating routine stuff, potentially lowering operational costs over time, maybe even improving accuracy on standard tasks compared to humans doing repetitive work, and definitely enhancing the customer experience with things like 24/7 availability and instant answers to common questions.
And it feels like there's always but with new tech, getting those benefits isn't guaranteed, is it?
Not at all. It takes serious effort, careful planning, really rigorous vendor selection, a major commitment to managing your data well internally, and a very thoughtful, people-first approach to integrating it and managing the change with your team.
Success really seems to hinge on a few key things then. Selecting the right tech, probably embedded, definitely integrated well with your core systems.
Yep. Partnering with the right vendor, one who gets title, prioritizes security and compliance, like their life depends on it, because ours does.
Building smart workflows, using the bot for what it's good at, but always having that human oversight and clear escalation.
And crucially, getting staff buy-in, showing them clearly how it helps them do more valuable work, not how it threatens their job.
And all along the way, keeping those risks front and center, the liability from hallucinations, the dangers of bad data or bias, the complex and changing regulations, you need constant diligence.
Absolutely. Trust and accuracy are everything in our business. You have to protect them fiercely.
So the closing thought may be, for everyone listening as they think about this for their own operation, it's not really about choosing bots or humans.
No, that's totally a false dilemma. The future, the smart future, is about strategically integrating bots, A&D humans, to work together more effectively.
Using the AI to handle the high-volume, predictable stuff.
Right, which frees up your amazing human professionals, your examiners, your closers, your escrow officers, your client support team to focus their unique, irreplaceable human skills.
Like critical thinking, empathy, complex problem-solving, relationship building.
Exactly. All the stuff that actually differentiates your service, builds trust, and handles the messy, complex reality that doesn't fit neatly into an algorithm.
So approaching AI adoption with careful planning, a healthy dose of skepticism, deep awareness of the risks, but also a clear focus on empowering both your customers and your staff. That seems like the recipe for success.
That's the thoughtful path forward. Using this powerful technology successfully in title means being strategic, diligent, and always putting people first.
Great insights. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive on AI chatbots in title. We really hope this gave you, our listeners, a clearer picture of what they are, how they work, and maybe most importantly, how to think about bringing them into your operation thoughtfully and strategically.
Our pleasure.
We'll be back soon with more insights into the future of design in your industry.